Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Coach's Corner. I am Jeffrey David Hartford, your host and the coach. That's the conduit of optimism, altruism, consciousness, and health. And today I have with me my friend, Dr. Kelli Ritter. Dr. Ritter is a licensed psychotherapist, a nutritional therapist, and a quantum health practitioner. And honestly, just an all-around wonderful human being. Dr. Kelli, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to talk to you. Always.
Likewise. Yeah, you were so wonderful to have me on your podcast. We had a great conversation. Quite a few of the people that follow along on my channel know about that and have listened to that. For those of you that didn't know, I'll be sure to put that in the show notes so you can go to listen to that one as well. But we did touch upon in that we met at the Return to Nature Quantum Health Retreat, which was just incredible. And truly not to take away from what you bring to the table as an individual, but truly everybody there, I just felt connected with, like we were all extended family and we were meant to meet and it was destined to happen. But really, you and I clicked. There was something there and it was wonderful. I was grateful for it. And I'm thrilled to have you here. Yeah, tell us a little more about yourself. What got you into psychotherapy? Why the nutrition therapy side of it? And then what opened your eyes to the quantum health side?
Yeah, well, I have to say, we were sitting at the same table at Return to Nature, and
Indeed.
I am so glad. I think we would have probably connected anyway, but you and I were at the front table, front and
That's
center,
right.
learning as much as possible. And so it was really, really incredible experience. So I think I bumbled into becoming a psychotherapist. Really, I was originally a business major, and that was a very bad match for me. And so I ended up switching to psychology as a major because that's where I could make A's. And I was really fascinated mostly by human potential, human development. I love child development, those kind of classes. Social psych was a really favorite class, not so much the abnormal psych. I thought it was interesting, but I never really wanted to work in pathology. I was always much more oriented towards education and wellness versus a medical model, which I know you can relate to what I'm saying.
Indeed.
So I didn't know what to do. I minored in theater, I majored in psychology. I was helping to run a family business that had nothing to do with mental health. And I wasn't in love with that either. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll just go to graduate school, which was a great decision because it was really helpful for my own growth. But I ended up going into counseling because I looked into psychology programs and PhD programs, and it was all more medical model at that point. And so I went the counseling route. And I got into nutrition because I've always been interested in health and wellness, right? From that perspective. But originally, I worked with children and families. I was a play therapist, associate professor in counseling. I taught the play therapy class, I taught child and adolescent counseling, family, group counseling, and trauma, the trauma counseling class. So that's really kind of my background and and then my dad got diagnosed with cancer. So he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And at that time, I was doing a lot with nutrition with him and got fascinated by the gut brain axis. And then, so I went back to school to become a nutritional therapist. And then quantum health came about. I was really curious personally about mitochondria. So I'd already started poking around, learning about mitochondria. And then my son, my youngest son, started having major health problems and anxiety, panic attacks, all the things. I could not figure out all the traditional, everything that I had ever learned was not really helping him, maybe a little bit function, but not really helping him. And he had a really bad day one day. And I thought, you know what? I think it's time to learn about this applied quantum biology thing. So I did, and it changed my life.
Wow. That's amazing. What I really admire about that whole story is your constant, I'll say awareness, whether you were consciously aware or not, that something felt in alignment or it didn't. And
Yeah.
when it didn't, whether maybe it didn't happen overnight, maybe it wasn't a quick fix, but you just felt called to, hey, this isn't right for me. I'm going to do that instead because that interests me more or that feels right. And I really admire that. And I can say in many ways I've walked a similar path, and many of the changes took a little longer than I'd like to admit, but some of us are a little more stubborn than others, right? So that's interesting. While I want to dig deeper into all of it, the quantum stuff with your son, where did you start with that, and how much did you see it change for him?
Nah. So I started with me, and I
Oh, okay,
really recommend that with parents. I mean, I was doing a lot nutritionally for him. We were
sure.
utilizing supplements. I bought a red light panel. I would go in and just open the window to let light in, trying to do anything like anything you could do to try and mitigate the junk blue light and get his circadian rhythm supported. But it was really hard to get him. He was 17, 16 at the time. And so he's 20 now. It was just challenging to get, he would want to feel better and he would want to do things, but it also seemed ridiculous to him that I'm talking about light and water and earth. He was more receptive to food. So I did a lot more with the food piece of the puzzle. And he eventually actually went mostly carnivore on his own. He did that on his own. But I did it with me. I started with me. I changed my light environment. It all made so much sense to me. And I thought this is really what we've been missing in mental health, because it's good, the traditional thing. And I'm a big believer in working through emotional things that are stuck emotionally. I love mindfulness, meditation. Certainly, I'm a big believer in working through any kind of trauma. It doesn't even have to be big T trauma, but trauma that gets stuck in the body because the body keeps the score, right? We had already done all of those things. We were doing all those things. I had already done all of those things in my own life, and I thought I was pretty good. I was good. And then I started implementing more of the quantum health strategies, starting with light. That's where I started for me. I was already a really into nutrition, right? So already a non-drinker, already, all the things, all the layers coming. And this was truly the first time that I saw the needle move in a way that personally, that I was like, no way. There
Hmm.
is no way this is helping this much. And I found that I didn't realize how anxious I've been my whole life. I knew I was kind of an uptight, anxious person. That's kind of the joke of the family, is that I can make a picnic a stressful event just because I was really wanting it to be a great picnic.
Yeah.
So I knew, but I did not know how much I was carrying in my body until I started the quantum health practices. And then, it's just snowballing. So you
Yeah.
start with the light. I started with light. Some people start with water, earthing, or some other place, magnetism. I started with light, and then I got interested. I didn't even block blue light at first. It took me a while to realize how important that was at night. So it was just kind of this process. And then, you start earthing all the time. And I was using red light because I bought the thing. I bought the red light panel for him, and he wasn't really using it very much. He uses it more now, I think, than he used to. But so I thought somebody needs to use it. I started using it, and I was blown away. And I was mostly blown away because I am a great sleeper. And I thought, oh, I don't have any problems with sleep. And I thought, oh, I'm good. I don't really have problems with major anxiety. And I realized how much better my sleep got,
Yeah.
how much more grounded and clear I would wake up ready to go in the mornings. That blew me away, I think, more than anything. But the mental clarity, and then just being able to regulate pretty quickly in the stress, probably the most stressful time of my entire
Mm.
life. And I
Yeah.
was, yeah, so grateful. I mean, just, he always says now, you're welcome, because now what it did for me personally, but also professionally.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful, and you're absolutely right. I love that that was your instant response. Is you started with you. It wasn't that you were able to just tell him what to do and he did it, and he all of a sudden turned a corner. I mean, that's the reality, right? As parents, we have to know that our kids are going to emulate what we do. They're not just going to do what we say. So we have to lead by example, and it's so much better for us that we take on those challenges. We say, "Hey, wait a minute, I have areas I need to improve as well." And as we're willing to walk through life and be brutally honest with ourselves, even if we think something's pretty good, it could always be better. So if we remain curious and we keep looking for, not that we're not happy, not that we're not content, whatever word we want to use, but just this willingness to always become a better version of ourselves, if for no other reason than for those of us that are parents, for our kids, right? And there's an interesting thing that you were saying too, with regards to like the anxiety and such, and you already touched upon the mitochondria. That makes us think back to, now that we understand that the mitochondrial line is coming from the mom and it's passed on through there, right? That you took on, without being aware of it, this whole history of mitochondrial energy, let's call it, through mom, through grandma, and beyond. So the more you've studied it and begun to understand it, can you look back and see that? Was it a lot of, let's say, the mitochondrial line and even just the subconscious programming that drove a lot of the anxiety and such? That
100%. All roads lead
Yeah,
back to mitochondria. Every time I
yeah,
want to learn something and study it, like I should know by now. It just leads us back to understanding mitochondria. So, yes, I could see that. But I also, Jeffrey, I think you'll appreciate this. I just had this feeling always that any healing that we do for several generations. I think Native Americans say 7 generations forward, 7 generations back. And I just believed that I was helping ancestrally everybody behind me and then anyone coming in the future, not just my own children. But yeah, the more, and I honestly didn't really know at that time. I hadn't really looked into Doug Wallace's work. So I didn't really understand that mitochondria, that we inherit that from our mothers. But now looking back, so much makes sense to me, and how I felt as a child. And I just felt sluggish a lot of the time. I had tummy aches, headaches, I started having migraines at 17. And it all looks very different now that I understand cellular healing, and how much I just wish. I was thinking about this on my drive yesterday. I had a 9-hour drive to think about things yesterday. And I was like, we could end I think we can end chronic anxiety for people, but I think we can definitely end chronic anxiety for children. And I think we should,
yeah,
because it may be very common, but it is not normal. And we can fix the mitochondria. It doesn't really matter what you were born, what your mitochondria are like when you're born, because we can improve that and we can get to the place where we're making new mitochondria. And that is so exciting to me.
yeah,
And really, in mental health, I was excited by nutrition. I was very excited about that because it can make a huge difference. But nothing can touch what mitochondrial health can do for people. And I think, certainly therapy has a place. The different ways of healing have their place. But if people are missing the mitochondrial, if they're not supporting their circadian rhythms, first of all, but if they're not understanding how to support their mitochondrial health and get to the point where they're making new healthy mitochondria, they are
yeah,
missing a huge piece that is foundational. It's a foundation, it's huge in this puzzle. And I think so many people in mental health in the field, but parents, people that have chronic mental health kinds of issues. And it doesn't even have to be debilitating. It often is. But I'm also talking about, I was a super high functioning person. I think people sometimes don't realize how much better they could feel.
yeah.
And they're trying all these different things, the supplements and trying to eat different ways and therapy and all of the things. And they're just missing this huge piece of the puzzle.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I believe you're 100% right. I believe we can. I believe we're well on our way, because
Yeah.
I think conversations like this are a part of it. I think just the data coming out, like you say, with Dr. Wallace's work, there's just so much information we now have access to that we didn't previously have. And while we can talk about technology through the lens of damaging the mitochondria, we can also recognize that, well, with technology used appropriately, used with a little maturity and awareness, we can use it to share the proper information, go apply that information and then unplug. Go back outside, go touch your bare feet to the earth, go get some sun, take your glasses off, take your shirt off, whatever you feel you need to do to get connected and get the right inputs so that the body can heal itself. And to me, the most exciting part about all that is it not only is the input that we need actually free, it's actually potentially going to save us an outrageous amount of money if we recognize that sooner than later. So we don't have to keep buying the next big thing that we're sold as this is going to fix it all. This is going to fix it all.
Yeah.
And do yourself a favor. And every time they come out with a new phone, you don't need to get rid of the old one and get the new one and have the new gadgets and, the earbuds in 24/7 and the new wearable device. Like, I'm pretty sure I don't need to wake up and check my phone app to tell me whether or not I slept well if I wake up feeling rested and full of energy, right?
Exactly.
And when I'm doing all these things with the other wearables and another device, and I keep the Wi-Fi on all night, and I've got all this, stew around me of non-native EMFs, and I wonder why I'm stiff and I'm sore and I'm tired and I can't repair and my brain is foggy and all these things. It is just so exciting for me that what we're spreading, the information we're sharing, isn't the next thing within the disempowerment paradigm to try to sell the next thing. It is, hey, do yourself a favor, learn this information, and then what it takes to heal is free and will save you a whole lot of money. That's amazing, right?
That is amazing. And I think so many people are hungry for it. And what I'm seeing is really exciting. I work with a lot of young adults. I work with moms, not so much the dads yet, but a lot of people that are trying to help support someone else that they love, a loved one that has chronic anxiety. And they are really open, more open than you would expect for somebody. Like, they want to know how to improve their own health. They end up improving their own health when they come and they're just a loved one trying to help somebody else. But I'm really impressed with the young people. I think we could go down a road of being fearful of kind of what's coming for the next generations and where are we headed. And I think if you spend any time in the news or on TV watching any of that, you can get really upset. But I see the opposite happening. I see more young people being curious, wanting to get back to ancestral kind of living, wanting to have families that are going back to helping their kids when they have them with circadian rhythms and living in alignment with their natural environment. And I think we've been doing this. There was a book years ago, I can't remember the author, but I thought it was great. And I was trying to tell people back then, probably 20 years ago, it was called Nature Deficit Disorder. And it was some researchers that were trying to say this is going to be the next big thing with kids, is that everybody's worried about ADHD and all these different diagnoses and ASD and all of this stuff, when actually what's really happening is people are nature deficient. They're not getting. And so I thought that was fascinating, but not many people were interested in listening at that time. And I don't know if that many people in my industry are interested in listening. Sometimes we tend to think that our education, we know more. Like, it really is about returning to nature. And that seems kind of simple, but it is free. And I see a lot of young people saying this makes a lot of sense for their own
Yeah,
health and then their future families.
agreed. And I can really relate. And it's interesting. I will say part of it, you and I definitely have some parallel journeys. We work on ourselves. We share that we're working on ourselves. We're not acting as if we're something we're not. And I think that alone makes it relatable, makes it, you're approachable. And when you deliver the information from a place of this bridging the gap of semantic knowledge and experiential knowledge, people can connect, they can understand it better, they can relate, they can ask questions, and you've done it, you haven't just studied it. So you're right. I mean, the number of people that come out of whatever level of education it is, they come out of university, they come out of med school, and they've been programmed to believe that because you're here, you're better than everybody that's not here. You're smarter. You will always be smarter. You'll always be better. And they begin to believe that. They take that on. And we need to break that system. Going to school in and of itself isn't a bad thing, but when it becomes an indoctrination as opposed to a true education and teaching you how to remain curious, there's something we lose there, right? But yeah, I'm so with you that the number of times, and I'm excited to say that I have been able to connect with both men and women. Almost it started more with the women. I think there's something about, especially as a male massage therapist, generally there are still some men with a stigma there, but once they get in, they experience what it is that I do. It's, I refer to it as therapeutic sports massage, and a lot of stretching, a lot of moving, myofascial work and such. They get much more comfortable with that. And then when they connect with me, and I'm open, honest, as we've gone through before, my 4 principles, the authenticity, humility, vulnerability, and adaptability, I share that from the place of I still live that every single day, and I share that in hopes that somebody else will take it on and kind of abide by it. And that's what they do. It almost gives them permission to not feel judged. I'm not here telling you what you're doing wrong or that you even are wrong. I'm just, hey, I'm a flawed human being too that's doing a whole lot of work, and this is where I've improved, and this is what I've learned, and I'm going to continue to study and learn. So I guess with that, a great transition. We've mentioned it several times already, but let's go as deep as you'd like into mitochondria. What is damaging it for people? What do we do to go through the mitophagy, mitogenesis, this whole process of, and where does the mitochondria exist? I mean, many of my audience members already know this, but the more you want to delve into, we'll take it.
Yeah, I think it's really important because so many people are like, wait, what are the mitochondria? What do you? They don't even know what you were saying. And there's these little organelles that live inside of our cells that are so much more important than we ever knew, that we didn't learned maybe in high school biology. It's the powerhouse of the cell, but it doesn't really tell you how much the mitochondria do and how important they are. And what I thought was really fascinating, mostly about with Doug Wallace's work, is that because a lot of people will say, well, if I have dysfunctional mitochondria, how am I even functioning at all? Because we can function without symptoms start to show up when we're about 70% dysfunctional mitochondria inside your cells. And our cells are packed with these organelles. They're so important. And they take whatever oxygen is available in our environment and they make our energy, our main source of energy, which is ATP, adenosine triphosphate. I learned that in nutrition school. Like ATP was on one of our tests, but I didn't really understand how important the mitochondria are, and then it's way more than that. They also make water. And
Yeah.
water, we are mostly water. And by molecular count, anyway, we are mostly water. And water is fascinating and it holds memory. And it's just really, we could go into water. I know you've had Carrie on.
Yeah.
Carrie's the water queen.
Yes.
But I didn't learn any of that piece. I certainly didn't learn it in graduate school for mental health. And I think people, to learn that each of our cells has these mitochondria, little organelles that are packed in there. It's not just like one floating around.
Right.
And in the brain, so the human egg has the most mitochondria per cell, but then the brain is next. I think that's really interesting. And I also really think the body is so smart. And the fact that people would talk about, in nutritional therapy school, we talked about inflammation and how inflammation is the root of almost all disease, and that it will start in the gut. And I'm like, there's no way, because inflammation is lost energy. It's lost electrons. Well, what are the mitochondria? Well, they're what move electrons through the body. They're the electron transport chain. So they're moving electrons. And when they're dysfunctional, they swell. And then the electrons don't move well They can't hop through, or whatever it is they do. They can't move through the electron transport chain very well. So they become dysfunctional. And then we have all this lost electrons are reactive oxygen species. Well, what is a reactive oxygen species? Inflammation. So then
Amen.
you start to go to ding, to ding, ding, putting all this together. You're like, wait, what? This is amazing. And if we have more mitochondria in our brain cells, if that's where we have, besides the human egg, where we have the next most, don't you think that by the time you have inflammation in your gut, you're going to have inflammation in your brain?
Right.
And so, not that mental health lives in the brain. That's not true. That's not an accurate piece, but it just goes to show, like, what we're saying is that when you already have gut health issues, you almost always already have some kind of brain issue, at least brain fog.
Yeah.
But it comes back to understanding that your mitochondria, when they are dysfunctional, will swell. Now, we get our mitochondria from our mother's line down. We're handed off the mitochondria. But then how our lifestyle is what either helps our mitochondria. We either have the right inputs or we have too many of the wrong inputs. And the wrong inputs, like the wrong lighting, is going to disorient your mitochondria. But the mitochondria really need three things. I think that's probably the easiest way to talk about it. They need sunlight.
Yeah.
And people, they don't need a sunshiny, beautiful day. They just need light from outside. And they need electrons. And we can get electrons through earthing, our skin touching the Earth's surface. It's full of free electrons. So we can do that through earthing. And we also can get our electrons through our food. And then they need oxygen. And so I always kind of go, well, that's why I think breath work is so helpful, not just because it's calming, but it's also helping the mitochondria because breath is life. And so when you learn how to breathe appropriately, then you're just helping your mitochondria out. So if you think about, well, then what damages the mitochondria? There's so many things in our environment now. Stress, I don't think people realize the impact of stress.
Yeah.
So, and that could be psychological stress, physical stress, like, and sometimes we put our body in situations to experience stress, like cold exposure or fasting, and that can be helpful. But I'm talking about distress, not eustress now.
Yep.
So that really does not help us out. But then if we're constantly in the wrong lighting environment, then you're going to disorient your body. If you don't have electrons, I literally think so many people were eating basically dead food. You're eating a lot of processed foods. Seed oils damage the mitochondria. So if you're not getting the proper nutrition, if your lighting environment is off, the non-native EMFs that we already mentioned, this is how our little mitochondria start like limping along, and then we get more inflammation. And then we have symptoms. Around 70% dysfunctional mitochondria, we start getting symptoms. But I also think it's exciting because once your body shows you that by symptoms, that means your body is already, in my mind, that's like your body is already trying to restore things.
Yes.
So it's already moved into a healing phase. So if you can support it with the right inputs and start working on some of the things that are damaging to the mitochondria, the wrong inputs, to just like limit some of that, but really just focusing on what to put in. How do we optimize that? And I think we're going to see more and more, especially families, not just at home, but I'm hoping that schools will start figuring this stuff out, that we can make things a lot healthier for teachers, because schools are notoriously bad at supporting our health in general. Yeah. But once you understand circadian rhythms and mitochondria, you're like, well, no wonder, because you're in the indoor lighting, first of all, just being indoors all day. And then everything else that kind of goes with that, it's not supporting the mitochondria.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you think about the things that kids will end up losing when they get in trouble are going outdoors,
Outdoor time.
recess, movement, things that the kids that don't have the control, that's exactly what they need is get outside, go get the light. I think there's a saving grace, and it's interesting. There's the system is flawed. So the education system as a whole needs to be revamped, but we're blessed that we have a lot of phenomenal teachers themselves. My wife is a teacher. I have quite a few clients that are teachers. And one client that pops into mind, we've been talking about this for years now. She doesn't use the overhead fluorescent lights in her classroom. She has salt lamps, she has different lights, lamps down lower, and she's fully aware of how important it is to get the students outside as often as she possibly can. It's not just for recess. The more we can share the information with people like that are actually going to do something about it, that's a key piece of the puzzle. And it's not a coincidence that her class is the best behaved class in the entire school, and parents that have, their students were with other teachers the year before in the previous grade, and they had so many issues, and then they come in and they have her, and wow, I don't know what it is you're doing with my student. But, and granted, her personality is great, the way she communicates is great, there's a lot she brings to the table, but I think there's a large part of it that has to do with the environment that she creates. She gets them outside more. So that's such a big piece of it as well. And it's interesting the way you talk about when the symptoms come along, and what that means. As you know, with my journey, with my diagnosis, I listened to a video of yours recently. It was about a year ago that you shared it, but it was talking about you weren't feeling well, and you chose to sit with that and feel that, and not take over the counter medications, not take ibuprofen, Tylenol, what have you, and just kind of go through it. And that's what I've been doing through this journey. I've had multiple times where, it was less than ideal. I didn't feel great. I was in some discomfort. And for a couple of different reasons, I said, I'm supposed to feel this. I'm not supposed to mask this. Because let's be honest, it's the kidney. We don't need to go pumping more chemicals into my body for my kidney to have to process anyway. So there's a role that I have played actively that allowed the environment internally to end up where it is. And there's a lesson for me to learn. And I'm with you. The symptoms that I may see, I view that as a beautiful thing. My immune system's doing its job
Yes.
of clearing out the things that don't belong. And I don't want to hide from it. I don't want to run from it. I don't want to pop a pill and act like it doesn't exist. I want to say, whoa, the lifestyle that I led that got me here is something I can't keep doing. I can't keep living in denial of it. So even that, I really appreciated that video of yours, and I can relate wholeheartedly, and thinking about it through the lens too of the mitochondria. I like that a lot. I think you touched upon quite a few different things there, but the stressors and the hormetic stressors that we do, we know, okay, this will challenge my body, but on the other side of this, I'm going to have a better outcome as long as I'm not overdoing it. At what point do you personally feel even those things, maybe we shouldn't start there, right? Maybe those things, there's too many. If we're stacking all of those and it's another stressor and another stressor, it's, hey, let's just take a step back and
Yeah.
think about it from the autonomic nervous system point, right? Is there a viewpoint that you have from that personally and with the people you work with?
Yeah. I like to start with shoring people up more before we start doing some of the hormetic. I mean, and a lot of people will jump right to the fasting or their ketogenic diets, and they're very helpful in mental health. I will not, absolutely. And or cold plunging, and they go right to these things without doing some of the foundational. I think of foundation, we were talking about what's free. It's the
Yes.
free stuff. If you can
Yes.
start there, sometimes people just won't. Like Jeffrey, they just they just won't. They just, I don't know what that's about, but I see that sometimes in folks, is that I think they're desperate to feel better, and they think that it's got to be hard, or it's got
Yes.
to be, you got to go at it as hard as you can, when actually they need more rest. They need more literally sitting your ass outside. Like, just could ask yourself, could I be doing this outside? Can I take this phone call outside? Can I crack the window on my way to pick up the kids from school or soccer practice or whatever it is? Could I eat my dinner before sunset? Like little things, these kind of micro I have a client that says she calls them micro. I don't even think those are micro. Those are pretty big things.
Agreed.
But these little changes that you could make that were free that could really make a difference. Start there. To me, that's foundational before you go at even some of the biohacking stuff. But sometimes people are feeling so badly that I understand we need to add the red light quicker, and sometimes they need the supplements or what. And I'm not opposed to medications either. If, a lot of my clients utilize medications, but if you can start by shoring yourself up before you stress yourself, like get your hormones just a little more balanced. Let's get a little more of the inputs, the correct inputs for the mitochondria before you start adding things that are really stressful to the body.
I love that. And simplicity is key, and it's funny too. I mean, now you're talking to somebody, I think we've talked about it. I do cold plunge very regularly. I don't do it every single day, but very regularly. I sauna. I do a lot of different things, but there's a couple of different reasons for that. What I do for a living lends itself to, as I've said, I like to study things and understand it semantically, and I like to experience it. So if I'm going to talk about it, I want to have done it. And then, obviously, due to my diagnosis and what I'm recovering from, there's a different perspective there. I'd say if we think about it, I had Dr. Alexis Cowan on, and she's
Yeah,
got a real simple pyramid she uses for this. She calls it her health pyramid. And the foundation is the quantum biology, light, water, magnetism, right? So get that stuff going, get in sync with the circadian rhythm, make sure you're hydrated, make sure you're giving your mitochondria what they need so that they're making the metabolic water, all those good things, right? And when I looked at this, especially the background in the fitness industry, it's the inverse of what the fitness industry does, minus you can strip away the light water magnetism from the fitness industry. They don't even know what any of that means, And that's no knock on them. That's just the reality of what it is. I've been in it for over 20 years. So the peak of her pyramid is the movement, the exercise. The one just below that is nutrition. And just below that is sleep. So that's the order. You lay that foundation of light, water, and magnetism, and instantly you get in sync with the circadian rhythm. That makes it so that you sleep better. When you sleep better, you make better choices. You have less brain fog. You function better. Your mitochondria are functioning optimally. So now you make better choices nutritionally. So you have even more energy. So now you exercise. And that pyramid just makes so much sense. And it is the simple stuff. So if we talk about it from the perspective of the biohacking and do I need to sauna? Do I need to cold plunge? Sure, those things play a role, but let me just ask you this. Do you expose yourself to the natural environment? If it's hot out and you step out there and you're instantly sweating, are you running back into AC? Well, maybe just get out there and experience nature so you don't need a sauna. Just go outside when it's hot and sweat. And when it's cold out, do you bundle up and do you run back into the heat as soon as you can? Well, maybe just go outside for a little while with your t-shirt on and not 85 layers and actually feel what the environment is telling you, because that's what gives the mitochondria the information they need to optimize. We are just so programmed to run from that and to seek comfort. And in seeking the comfort is where we're doing the damage. That's been my journey anyway. And the more I see that and the more I can simplify it and the more I can find what is free and learn a little more and apply a little more, what a recipe, right?
I
That's
agree.
where we thrive.
And also, I think the simplicity we're talking about, simple, and the foundation. I think the foundation is really important. And you and I were at a different place. So some people, when I think about some of the people who come to me for consultation or in my classes or the courses I do, they are barely functioning. So they can hardly get themselves off the sofa. So I think of it, if you did like 0 to 10, I need to get them to at least a 5 before we even start thinking about some of the hormetic, like cold plunging or some of the other biohacking. There might be some biohacking we would do, like the red light. I'm a huge fan of red light. That's why I keep
Yeah.
mentioning that, because I think it could
Yeah.
help people really quickly. But you and I were already, when we came upon, I think you were too, I was probably already an 8-ish.
Yeah.
when I already had the nutrition and the diet and all of that. So even though our pyramid was probably inverted at the
Yeah.
time, we did have a pretty strong foundation of healthy habits in place. And so I think when somebody's already at a 5, 6, 7, that's a different place than somebody that's at a 0, 1, 2 in their health journey. So there's no like specific formula, but I think that might be helpful to people too. Is like, well, if I'm already pretty healthy,
Yeah.
maybe I sprinkle in some of these like cold plunging, maybe because I love cold plunging for mental health. I will
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
it is different than a cold shower. It's different than like sticking your hands in the cold. Those are great little baby steps, but
Hmm.
immersing yourself in cold, not just cold water, but if it's cold outside, like you mentioned, maybe you don't have 80 layers on, but you're just
Yeah.
exposing yourself to that kind of cold and allowing your body to get cold. There's something really helpful that zings in your brain. I think it's the mitochondria and the light that they produce that's
Yes.
creating that zing in the brain, but it's really helpful. So I don't want to say, like, if you're at a 0, don't do it. But at the same time, you might want to be around a 5-ish before you start doing some of these other things.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I think it goes along with the premise of meet them where they are. Right.
Yeah.
And from this
Yeah.
perspective too, my hope is that just by people listening to our conversation, they'll pull some tools from this and they'll go experiment on their own. So just understand that, yeah, if you genuinely feel that you're closer to the 0, 1, 2 and you just want to feel a little bit better, you say, I don't understand. I'm so tired at the end of the day, but I can't fall asleep. Well, all right, we got to work on your light environment. You have way too much blue light after sunset. Your cells still believe it's the middle of the day. Minimally put on a hoodie indoors and put on some blue light glasses if you're going to continue to keep the lights on and watch your shows or what have you. You know, if you're willing to do more, cool. Shut those overhead lights off. Get some full spectrum bulbs. Put them in lamps down low. Like, right, all those types of things can make such a big difference. But I think it's important that somebody who does feel they know full well where they're at and they're watching some of these biohackers that are in phenomenal shape, they're looking for the absolute peak, and these people watching them are like, well, I can't do that, that doesn't make sense to me, that doesn't work for me. You're right, that's not for you right now. If you see it and you feel it's too daunting and it's too much, cool, don't start there. Where can we start? You know, get up tomorrow morning, even if you're exhausted, almost especially if you're exhausted, get up to see the sunrise. That's going to hit your reset button. Superchiasmatic nucleus turns on, right? All these types of things. So I absolutely love it. You're absolutely right. And it's important to look at it through that lens too, and give permission almost to people of, hey, yeah, wherever you are is where you are, and that's where you need to start. But if you do it today and you do it again tomorrow and you do it again the next day, it will continue to get better and
Better and
better and
better.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
love it.
think if you start with what resonates, people know. They're like, and so people will come to me and they're like, I want to start with the food. Okay, we'll start with the food. Sometimes I think that's low hanging fruit. But if that's where they feel like starting, they know that their diet is a mess and that nutritionally they're probably not getting some nutrients that are really important. We start there.
Yes.
Maybe they're not quite right. I mean, you and I are like, the light, you got to get the light right. You're going to feel so much better if you just get the light right.
Yeah.
But if you intuitively feel like, I want to start with breath, I want to start with prayer. I
Yes.
always say, when all else fails, I can drop to my knees and pray. And I have done that a lot.
Yeah. Well, and you know what's really interesting too, now that we understand this whole the studies behind water and how much water we have in us, when we pray, it isn't that we're talking to something outside of us, some ephemeral thing beyond us. Your water hears that. Your mitochondria, your cells, everything in here hears that and feels that. I mean, I literally had a conversation with a client the other day and I told him, since I've spoken to Carrie and all that, when I grab my water, even though I drink a good quality spring water in a glass bottle, yes, good choice. I speak to it. I tell it, I love you. I say things to the, I know full well it's going to absorb it. And then when I drink it, it's going in there. That stuff is so important. And you touched upon this before too with the food, true food, not food like substances, but true food has
Yeah.
light information. It's
Yeah.
living, right?
Yeah.
So we can do the same thing when we pray over our meal before we eat it. We're talking to the water in there, and then we're truly nourishing us. I talk often about it that as much as I've spent time understanding the nutrition, you said it, it is electrons. We're getting electrons from it, just like we can get electrons from grounding and from going to the beach and such. If you're eating something that's so processed that it's in some baggie and it sits on a shelf for years, there's no life in that anymore. It isn't just calories, carbs, protein, and fat. We need the light information. So I love it. We're definitely talking the same language. Now, I really like it too. The approach with the mental health side of it, the nutrition side of it, and now the quantum side of it. When people come to work with you, is it through the lens primarily of the mental health, or have you branched off now? You're working with people in different areas because of your skill set.
No, I left the mental health profession. I was
Okay.
really tired of it. And so when I left academia, I tried for a little bit. I did holistic and psychotherapy, but I got really into nutrition. And so then I just kind of dropped mental health, and the universe, God, calling, something wouldn't let me just drop it. And so now my area of expertise is anxiety recovery. And that is where I feel most called, most passionate. So most of the people who are coming are struggling with chronic anxiety and panic attacks. And it just feels so interesting that it feels like full circle to me, like, where I started and here I am all the way back. But those are most of the people. I still get a lot of people with gut health issues because I did a lot of work when I first started getting into nutritional therapy. That was kind of my area. Um, yeah, which is more a circadian rhythms issue than a food issue, just saying.
Sure is. Get that sun on your tummy, right?
Yeah.
I spoke with Dr. Sabine Hayes and we talked quite a bit about the microbiome and all that. That was a great
Uh,
conversation as well. Yeah, right? Yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned it felt like it came full circle. Am I reading too far into it, or the full circle part, was that also because that's a lot of what you personally dealt with and overcame yourself was the anxiety and such,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's we really, if we can just, to go back to something else you said, if we can unplug, we can sit in silence, ideally outside, do it grounded, do it under the sun, close our eyes and turn within, and just ask ourselves, am I doing what I'm supposed to do? Am I in alignment? And if we aren't and we don't know exactly what alignment is, well, what areas have you been working on yourself? And have you overcome it yet? And if you haven't, great starting point. Start to work on the thing that you have your own concerns with. And as you learn semantically the information necessary and you apply it and you then learn it experientially, you now just became an expert and you gave yourself something to go help others with. I spoke with a good friend of mine recently and he said, we all have a story. And our story is not ours to keep, it's ours to share, it's ours to tell. And I truly believe that's the recipe to find alignment, find your purpose, and you're living it.
I think so. And just yesterday, I thought, why so many people are coming to me? Moms are now just popping up in my life. They have anxious kiddos and they're thinking, what else can I do? And I thought yesterday, why don't I talk more about what it feels like to be a mother of a child that struggles with anxiety and panic? And I thought, because it's so messy and it's hard. And I think I felt like for a long time we needed to be enough out of the woods for me to help other people. And I think I realized it is exactly what I need to be sharing, because when I talk to these moms, they're like, they can't believe that I understand how much of what they're experiencing. But it's such an isolating experience. And you're just trying to go from day to day to piece it together. So you're right. But for a long time, I think I really denied, like, oh, that can't be my area. I don't know enough about that. And then, of course, the universe was like, oh, we'll show you more about it. Is that what you
Yeah.
need? We'll give you lots of information personally.
Yeah.
But I think when we get in our own way, we can, even if I get quiet and you ask yourself, I think for a long time I'd be like, no, no, that can't be right.
Right.
That can't be the calling. Yeah.
Yep.
So, which is fine
Oh, it's
because
great.
eventually you can't miss your calling. You can't miss your soul's journey because you're on it.
That's right. Yeah, I love that. So, how do people find you best if they want to work with you? Because I'm hoping they're listening to this and they're saying, oh boy, you're talking what I need, and I need a little more help than I can do for myself. Where do we send them for you?
Yeah, so I like to hang out on Instagram. That is my social media platform of choice. So people can find me at Dr. _Kelli with an I, Kelli. I like to go there. And then anxiety-recovery.com is my website. And they can find, of course, they can find the episode with you on the Quantum Mental Health podcast.
Yes,
So
indeed.
those are some of the places where you can find me.
Awesome. That will all make its way into the show notes, that's for sure. And we all have our own journey we're walking, and no matter how far we've come, there's always more room for improvement. So without any judgment, there's plenty of people out there who are going to need some guidance, and I'm certain they've listened to this and heard a couple of gems that they'll be able to take away and implement. But I'm hoping if you're listening, guys, and you need a hand, don't hesitate to reach out to Dr. Kelli. You'll be in good hands for sure. And I'll tell you,
Thank you.
like we said on your show, I could talk to you for hours. Hopefully, we'll
I
just
know.
do it again down the road. But
Yeah.
I will let you go. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. I appreciate you
Thank
sharing it with
you.
us. Of course.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Anytime.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Audience, you know the drill. Subscribe, like, comment, share, and certainly go check out the show notes and follow Dr. Kelli. And until next time, have a blessed day.